What's good, everybody? Want to welcome everybody, man, to OG Cuicide in the building. Got my co-host in the building with me, Adam22. Saving lives is changing lives.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So I am a co-host for once in my godforsaken life at this point. So basically the idea was OG Cuicide, after doing his interview, we saw the potential, thought maybe that there's something that could happen here. So we're going to do a run of, I guess, 4 episodes on the No Jumper channel. And then at that point, we are going to branch off and do the OG Cuicide in the Building channel. I guess that's the name.
Yes.
But we'll branch that off and have it be its own separate channel that will be, promoted through No Jumper and everything like that, part of the No Jumper family. That's the idea, at least, that we're going with here. You've talked about a lot of different ideas, I guess, in terms of having people call in.
Yes. I definitely want to have people call in and, really interact with some people and help people that's going through something, because what I've learned every day, somebody is either going through a mental issue or depression. And since my interview has aired, it's really been helping people. That's why I say, saving lives is changing lives. I get phone calls from a lot of different people just from all around the globe that have seen the interview. And, I gave out my number on the interview, so they contact me and I give them some real advice that help them get through that day.
I like it. So, yeah, that definitely seems like a good sort of mission statement to start from.
Yes.
Is that's the goal. What is the content going to be like on a day-to-day basis? That's the kind of question I think that is yet to be seen, is exactly what that kind of content is going to be like. And now you got me sitting across from you, so I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, we definitely we're going to put it together. We're going to bring it together and make it make sense for sure.
Definitely.
But it's definitely about helping people because, I've been looking at the statistics and analytics of around the world, over 703,000 people commit suicide, around the globe. And when you really break it down, you can say every 11 minutes someone commits suicide.
Wow.
And the rate of it is growing compared to 2020.
Right.
And the average population of let's say 100,000 people, over, let's say 500 to 1,500 people actually commit suicide.
Wow.
And that's raising, from 2020 compared to now, especially during the time of the COVID. During the COVID time, people losing their jobs, losing everything, just pretty much everything.
What do you think is the reason for that?
The reason for
that many people choosing to want to go out that way?
Well, for one thing, it's like when you're going through depression or you feeling suicidal, it's like, who do you talk to? Who can you talk to that you can actually say, you understand me? Or you walked in my shoes. That's how I felt during my time of it. It's like, okay, I'm well respected in these streets, and it's like, who do I come to and say, man, I really don't want to live no more? People are gonna look down on you, or instantly you stupid. They don't really take into what you're saying, and pay close attention to it. So with no one to talk to, then it's like my only other outlet is to commit suicide. That's how people feel.
Right. I mean, what do you say to somebody who really feel like, all right, I'll give you an example. I don't know if I talked about this on the interview, but I know a guy back in the day who committed suicide, who was a very popular bike rider, very well-known sponsor, tons of kids looked up to him. And the reason why I'm being vague is because the story that at one point came out, and I don't know if it was 100% true, but the idea was that he had been raising a kid with a girl for a couple years, and then at some point he figures out the kid isn't his, and that pushed him past the point of no return. And I remember hearing about that and being like, wow, like what the fuck would I do? And this is, I couldn't even imagine what it was like to have a kid back then. This was like in my mid-20s or whatever. But what do you think when you hear something like that, of somebody having to go through something like that makes them, and it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, like, was he the type of dude who would have maybe been a possible suicide risk at some point during his life, Or was he someone who never would have thought about it, but he just had this one really fucked up thing happen to him?
Yes.
And that was the thing that pushed him over the edge.
I feel like that really crushed him.
Right.
Because, I mean, kids are amazing.
Yeah.
And when you have a kid, you know, you bring a child into this world, like that child is a part of you.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at life and you see there's people that can't have children.
Right.
And then you're a person that can. And then you take care of this child, you love this child, like this is your child. And then to one day, I don't know how many years it was into him finding out, but then to one day find out, like, what actually this isn't your child.
Right.
It crushed him. He was devastated.
Yeah, because you invest so much of yourself as a person into your kid. And then
not
to
even
find out that the whole
financially.
thing is a fucking hoax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
And not even financially, your time. You wake up every day to your child.
And it's intertwined with her lying to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's like a double-sided knife.
Yeah.
You know, it cut him deep. And then it's like, who do you talk to that he probably felt like, man, it was going to be embarrassing to him.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're at the top of the world. Like, everybody
Imagine
know
having
you.
Yeah, you got a whole Instagram full of pictures of people that are looking at you like you got this dope family life.
Yes.
But it is kind of crazy, though, because if you think about that guy's position, if he had been able to suck it up and get through it, and at some point down the road, like, think about how you would feel about it 3 years later.
Yeah.
You know?
If he'd have had somebody.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not.
You know?
It's not, but at some point, some people, when their back is against the wall, and I mean, he was devastated, and then once it would have got out, there's double devastation because now everybody's talking about it. The media, the news, it's everywhere. And now everybody's looking at you like, oh, you dumb, you idiot. You should have been got, a test. But he like, no, this is my child.
Right.
So definitely, it was crushed.
Yeah, it makes me think about, too, like, I read about this, like, businessman the other day who, like, basically, like, they figured out he was doing some illegal shit, or it might have been a child porn thing. I don't know why. I can't remember.
And he committed suicide.
Dove right off the fucking roof.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. That's one where I'm kind of like, yeah, I could see it. Because it's like, what's this guy's life going to be like from here? He's probably going to prison for, let's say hypothetically is the child porn thing. You got a computer full of child porn. You're probably going to prison for like 10 years. I don't know. Something like that.
Out of here.
I mean, your wife's going to leave you. Your family's probably going to disown you, never talk to you again. Every single person that works in this corporate environment with you, every relationship, every connection you've ever made throughout your entire life, your fetish, your sickness, whatever you want to call it, that you've been dealing with presumably for your whole life, where you like looking at kids like this, is now on display for the whole world. You're going to lose all your money.
Everything.
The lawyer costs are going to wipe you the fuck out. Everything. I mean, in the realm of suicide at times, I guess I get that one.
and look at, and it's not even a financial thing. Like, having money don't make you happy. Look at Robin Williams.
Yeah.
One of my, favorite actors, man, since a kid, since the Mark and Mindy show.
Right.
Way back in the days. And, he attempted suicide. It's like things that, it'd be a lot going on in a person's mind that, and like I said, you look and you feel like nobody really understands you. People embrace you and they love you and all of these things. But at some point, you still feel like it's just not enough.
And
like,
that's one thing that I've noticed throughout my life is that when I accomplish things that are big things to me,
yes,
I always think that it's going to be this insanely happy moment where I'm just going to be overjoyed. Like when I first opened a store,
yes,
I had wanted to open a store for years and years and years, and then finally I did it. And instead of feeling happy, I felt kind of like, oh shit, like now I finally have this thing that I've been working towards, this goal accomplished, ticked off. And I still kind of feel the same as the way I did before. And it's going to be a lot of work from here going on forward from here. And I don't have this thing that I can just point at to be like, if I get to that,
yes,
then I'll be happy.
Yes. And I really feel like material things, it don't make you happy.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can have material things today and tomorrow is gone.
Yeah.
But what about mentally and physically? How are you? Because that's what really matters. the most. Just like you opened a store, but did you have other stores? You had other things going
That was
prior to that? That was your first store?
I had a website, like
Okay.
business going on.
It was doing good.
Yeah, I was doing all right, but I wasn't like making much money. I was kind of just like churning water business wise, you know?
Anything beats a zero.
This is true, but I wasn't progressing in my life. And at this
Okay.
point, I was in like my early 30s. So it's really kind of starting to hit me like, fuck, like, you know, like I got to figure something out, whatever. But the thing is that the store also, part of the reason why I felt so overwhelmed at that time was because the store also symbolized to me that I was going to start this podcast that I was going to call No Jumper.
Yes.
And I knew that was just something I was going to do. And I like realized how much work it was going to be and how I was going to have to like just put so much of myself into this. And, you know, it's like, but it's like that. It's like where everything that you accomplish, everything you tick off is also just you taking on a gigantic amount of responsibility. And sometimes it's overwhelming.
Sometimes you dive in head first.
That's true.
You know, not even knowing, you with no plans or no ideas, but you like, this is a vision. I'm going to bring it to life. That's how I am. Like with One West magazine, you know, it started from an idea with me and my bro Jason on the phone, just talking on the phone. And I'm like, I want to start a magazine. In 2013, we did, and you know it's still in existence, and that's what it's about. You know, going after it, and like a lot of people, and I've learned from a lot of people that watch No Jumper as well. A lot of people they're going through things. You know, some like they do pills. Or they just live in an environment where they're just very unhappy.
Right.
And I get a lot of the phone calls, and I talk to them, and sometimes a person just needs somebody to listen. You know, a lot of times people won't listen to a person. They be trying to vent, or they be trying to cry out for help, and people ignore it. You know, like a cat I know, his brother. You know, he seen me speak at a 5K walk and run for suicide prevention and awareness, and he heard my story, and then he told. You know, we topped it up, we talked. And when he went back home, his own brother told him, like, he wanted to commit suicide. And he told his brother, like, oh, well, man, I'll give you the gun to do it. Like, you want to commit suicide? You want to kill yourself? Well, here, I'll give you the gun. Go ahead. Very next day, man, this dude committed suicide.
He did.
He committed suicide.
How does his brother feel about giving him the gun?
I mean, he didn't give him the gun. He didn't take the gun from him.
Right.
But instead of him saying that, he should have embraced him. Like, look, no, let's sit down. Look, what's going on? Like, find out what's going on in a person's life. When a person feel this way, there's definitely something going on. But he'll never get that chance.
Right.
And he was crushed. You know, when I found out the story and they told me, I was like, wow, like, he could have had his brother call me. Like, you just seen what I've been through, what I talk about, what I stand for. And your brother tell you this, and this is how you react to it.
Right.
Like I said, sometimes, man, people really just need someone to talk to. Because over the years, I've talked many people out of committing suicide.
Really?
Yes, definitely.
What's that like?
I feel like it's my calling, you know? Just encouraging somebody to want to continue on with life. Because sometimes I also find out sometimes people are not going through as bad of a situation that they feel like they're going through.
Right.
No, I'm not working, and this, and I'm not working, man. Things is hard. I don't have no money. I'm not financially right. But what are you doing to actually get yourself financially right? Because if you're just sitting around waiting for it to fall out the sky, it's never going to happen.
Right.
So you have to actually be getting up and going for it. Because like I tell people all the time, you can't really say when you're going to be successful. You can't say, you know what, January 2023, I'm going to be successful. You can't say that. But if you're working every day towards your goals and pushing towards that literally every single day, it's possible. But you can't really just identify when you're going to be successful.
You ever hear this Cameron lyric that I would classify as probably one of the greatest rap lyrics of all time? He says, N-word can't get no money on an earth this big. You worthless kid. N-word don't deserve to live. It's really like a fucked up sentiment.
I mean,
Very
really
heartless sentiment.
I mean, it really is. But you look at a lot of artists in the game, though, especially a lot of the artists that corrupt the young people to do drugs.
Yeah.
You know, they encourage them to do drugs. I'm off all these drugs, and I feel amazing. These young people, they listen to that. They pay attention to that. They follow that, and they look up to these people.
Right.
But the downfall of that is, their kids go to private school. They living good. They're not around none of that.
Right.
So you're actually profiting off corrupting our minds, and then a lot of our young people be off the pills and commit suicide.
Right.
You know, that feeling of depression, of not wanting to live, or not caring about life, just actually giving up, feeling like nobody care about them.
See, sometimes I wonder how much empathy I really got, because I know people who are just fucked up on drugs, and
Yes.
like my main emotion towards them is not like, oh, I'm your friend, I'm gonna help you get better, etc. My main emotions are usually just like annoyance and then shunning them and just sort of not talking to them. Like, I have one friend in particular that really stands out to me, that around the same time that No Jumper started popping off,
Yes.
is like the worst alcoholic ever. And I was like really close with him.
Yes.
And at a certain point, I just realized I can't be around you. Like, I have no interest in spending time with you, given that you are always drunk.
Yes.
And it really was like triggered by like some random night where I like ran into him and he just was like screaming on me and acting tough and shit. And it was like not like a serious situation, because he was not tough like that. But it was like, I was just so over it that I just said, fuck it, bro. I'm not fucking with you anymore. And then I stopped talking to him, and then his life did not go in a great direction from there. And I think about it sometimes, like, that's somebody who I could have done more. I could have, gone the extra mile to try to help him out. Realistically, I did more than anybody in his entire life to help him out.
Yes.
But, it's like at a certain point, I just cut ties because I didn't want to fucking deal with it anymore. And, it's like a weird decision, because I could have spent a shitload more emotional labor trying to fucking help him and rehabilitate him or whatever, and instead I just threw the towel in.
Okay, but that's true. But if a person don't want to help themselves, then it's kind of like you just you preach it to the choir. A person have to want to help themselves. You could give them all the advice in the world,
Right?
But if they don't take that advice from you, because he should have looked at you as an example of like, okay, I need to get on point. I need to do better. I need to get my life together. Let this alcohol go. But until they make up their own mind, that's just like a person on drugs. Until they make up their own mind and say, you know what, this is not for me no more. Sometimes it takes something tragic to happen in their life.
But if you're really their friend, shouldn't you be the one trying to really stick by them and force them to go to rehab and go this extra mile to do all this extra ass shit?
You can't force a grown man to do nothing.
Yeah.
How you gonna force a grown man to go? You could tell him.
I tried. Yeah.
I know. I'm sure you did.
I tried.
You could tell him constantly. But until he say on his own, you know what? This is what I want to do for myself. That's just like me. When I got out the hospital from my attempted suicide, I was still homeless. I still was living the same way I was living. Nothing changed. The only difference is I was still alive and I had a gigantic bandage over my head. But I had to make up my mind to say, you know what, this is not for me. If I don't, it's now or never. That's how I felt. It's now or never. If I don't do what I need to do, people, like I said, some people laughed at me, about what happened. Man, you got to get it together. I heard everybody advice, but it would go through one ear and out the other. Because a lot of the people that was giving me the advice, y'all live in a good environment. Y'all beautiful home, amazing family. I'm this foster kid, grew up in the foster home, but I was loved. Miss Price loved me. But I had to say on my own, it's time for me to do better. It's time for me to get my life right. And it's not being a selfish thing. It's just, if you're not right, how you going to help somebody else?
Yeah, definitely. Like, for instance, there was a moment in the history of No Jumper a couple months ago where T-Rel, I believe, like, actually booked house phone, like a doctor's appointment and some shit. Like, I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but it was a bunch. Like, he was really going out of his way to try to get house phone to take his health serious.
Yes.
And it's kind of weird because I'm looking at the situation being like, damn, I never went that far with it. I told them to go to the doctor and shit, but I didn't
take
try
a
to
notion to go ahead and book it.
Never in my life did it cross my mind that I should be trying to make another man a fucking doctor's appointment. But I'm looking at T-Rel doing it, and I'm kind of thinking like, well, fuck, like that's a good friend right there. He's actually doing it. And then House Phone just basically fucks off and doesn't do it.
And again, I'll say if you can't make a person, you know, like you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. You can't make him go. Hopefully nothing happened that serious to where it's like you have to go to the hospital now.
Right.
Like you in a messed up predicament to where you get took from where you at in the paramedics.
Right.
And you have to go to the hospital now, and then it's too late because it's like, well, there's nothing we can do for you because you waited too late to not come to the doctor to get the situation took care of, whatever it is. So he's gonna have to make up his mind one day, and like I said, hopefully it's before something happened bad and he regret not going.
But with House Phone, like I can identify in him the same thing that I can kind of identify in a lot of other people I've known throughout my life, which is that like they're funny and cool and charming and people genuinely like them.
Yes.
And he, at some point in his life, sort of figured out that he could just get people to do things for him.
Yes.
Just based on being him.
Yes.
And that has taken him very far. That he's kind of like, it's allowed him to not develop a lot of normal human being coping mechanisms, such as like being able to make a doctor's appointment, which I totally understand because I am the exact same type of person where from a very young age, I did not want to do any boring businessy type stuff. I just wanted to make videos, or I just wanted to write blog posts, or I just wanted, you know, I really tried to like avoid all of the serious parts of life, like figuring out how to get health insurance or whatever.
Yes.
You know, just really kind of, and my life was a complete and total fucking mess until realistically when I got in a relationship and my girl made me start taking a lot of parts of my life more serious, you know? And
you had that support.
Yeah, which is nice. But
definitely.
You know, with somebody like House Phone, it's like, that's what I worry about. It's just like, I don't know, at a certain point, because this other dude I was talking about before, it was like, it was all good. Everybody was doing everything for him. And like, he had me fucking wiping his ass, not literally, for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden it runs out and it's just, their life is just kind of a mess once they run out of people who are willing to help them out, you know?
Yeah, but at some point you have to realize too, don't become as much as you want to help somebody and a person.
Phil, can you grab my Postmates? Can you grab my Postmates outside? Yeah. Thank you.
A person gotta want to help themselves, but you can't become an enabler to no one. You could become that enabler. Like you said, everybody's doing stuff for him to where it's like, I don't need to do nothing for myself.
Right.
If I need this done, I just make a call. Hey, can you go over here and do this for me? Or can you go get this? Can you take me here? Everybody becomes an enabler in this person's life.
Right.
So that makes them get lazy. You know, sometimes tough love is good love.
Yeah.
You know, it can really wake a person up. You know,
right.
Yeah, but being an enabler, being too nice, like sometimes you got to thoroughly let them know, like, look, I don't mind helping you. I don't mind doing this. But if you ain't trying to help yourself, then I can't continue to help keep you down. Because that's what it pretty much is doing. It's keeping a person down. They're not even thinking on their own to like, okay, well, let me stop letting everybody do stuff for me, man. Let me start doing this on my own. And I don't have to depend on nobody.
Right.
Especially when it's a person that's not trying. But if you got somebody that's trying and they're pushing and they're going hard and you're helping them, that's a big difference. That's generally support to them, and that's giving them the inspiration, the motivation to keep going. Definitely, because the key thing is getting up off the couch and getting to what you need to do.
Right, definitely. Yeah, it's weird to know how to approach it with House Phone because it's like I feel like I could, you know, because I don't know much about diabetes, but I know that it's dangerous. It has a lot to do with what you eat.
Yes.
You know? And so it's like that right there, I'm like eating meals with them and I'm kind of thinking like, bruh,
should you be eating this? Yeah.
3 glasses of lemonade. Like, I'm pretty sure sugar is a big thing with diabetes. Like, maybe this is not a great idea, but at the same time, like, do you really want to be a scold? Do you really want to be the person who like people are worried about ordering food in front of you because you're going to give them a hard time, you know? So it's like you don't even want to say it, but at the same time,
sometimes you gotta
if
say
you
it.
really cared about them,
gotta say
wouldn't
it.
you be making a big fucking deal about it, even though it's
Gotta say
uncomfortable?
it. You got to say it, though. You got to let them know. Regardless, sometimes it may piss a person off. They may get mad. Like, man, I'm not a kid. Every time we go eat, man, you talking about what I'm getting.
That's literally what he said, yeah. Because I didn't even say anything about the 3 glasses of lemonade. I just said, why the fuck you ordering 8 sides? And he was like, oh, this is how many sides I got, whatever. I'm like, okay, never mind.
But in the back of his mind, he hear what you're saying. You know, a person is going to play like they don't, you know, because some people are so naive. You know, they don't like to be told nothing.
Right.
So they feel like they're grown. Like, I pay my own bills. I make my own decisions.
Right.
But some people are older in age, but still young in the mind.
Yeah, you could probably throw him in that category.
Yeah, it's all about your mind. If you could be 38, but you got a 15-year-old mind.
Well, a lot of people will be grown up in one part of their brain. For me, for years and years, I was acting like a total adult when it came to my business and shit, and then acting like a complete total child when it came to like how I was taking care of myself, or even like the spot I lived in, because I was just living in a fucking dump and just never fucking cleaning the shit or anything like that.
You
know,
or was you raised like that?
No, I wasn't really. I like grew up in a pretty clean house, but then at a certain point, I kind of like just got into the mentality of like, what the fuck do I care about keeping the house clean?
Was you spoiled growing up?
No. Like my parents were pretty like working class, you know.
Okay.
Definitely like we didn't have a lot of money, and like, I remember like on Christmas I would have some friends who would get like a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like getting a couple little things, you know, like my mom, they were cool, but they would like from a very early age, my parents were just like pretty honest about the fact that we didn't have a whole lot of money, and we definitely not going to waste our fucking money on, you know, bunch of bullshit all the time, especially because we had college funds since I was a kid. My parents made that perfectly clear to me, like the reason why we're not going on vacation and the reason why you're not getting a whole bunch of stuff for Christmas is because we're putting money aside so that you can go to college one day, which made it kind of a different dynamic when I got of age and was basically like, fuck college, I ain't going to college. But yeah, I mean, they were just super serious about like sacrifice, I would say, in the sense of like letting me know you're not going to have everything you want, but in the long run, we're going to try to help set your life up for you with this college thing or whatever, because they had seen that. Like they were the first generation from their families that had gone to college.
That did that.
Yeah, and like my mom would always kind of talk about shit like that when I was a kid, about like how she would see her dad working at a grocery store like 60 hours a week.
Wow.
And, you know, how she always would just see how tiring physical labor was, basically, and how
didn't want to go through that.
Yeah, and like she didn't want that for me. She wanted me to be able to go to college and be able to get a job where I could use my mind and stuff like that. And to them, coming from that generation, I think that was a very big difference in like what your life is going to be like. Like if you spend your life doing construction, or if you spend your life in an office, the office is just a way better option, and you should like really go hard to try to get like an actual career going for yourself, so that you don't have to do physical labor your whole life. Because my mom would just always talk about, I just remember that, like, you know, my father worked his ass off every goddamn minute of the day, and then he was too tired to do shit the rest of the time, and his life was kind of like not that great, you know. And that always like stuck with me. But I didn't take it as like, oh, I'm gonna go to college and get a job. I thought of it like, oh, I'm gonna do crime and make money, and then I'm gonna start a business at some point, which did work out for me. But I'm not like great advice for everybody.
I can remember many Christmases because, you know, back then, you know, when Miss Price and Mr. Price adopted me, you know, back then, man, you know, the cost of living was different. You know, homes was like $12,000-$13,000, you know, to buy a home in Compton, you know, and that's when people would only be Mr. Price. I can remember seeing some of his checks sometime, and it's like $125, you know, for the whole week working at bonding motors. Yeah, and I can remember many Christmases it was nothing. Nobody got nothing, you know. It was kind of like just became just a regular thing. And I remember 12 years old, I was out hustling, you know, and I start, you know, giving Miss Price money, and she, boy, where you getting this from? And I was out, I sold bottles, or I'll just come up with anything. You could, back then you could take bottles to the liquor store and sell them, you know, 5 cent a bottle, 10 cent a bottle. You stack a gang of them and take them to the store. But I was actually
Well, there's still a lot of people doing
hustling.
that.
Yeah.
Like old
Yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
ladies
yeah,
all around
yeah,
New
yeah,
York.
yeah.
Who'd be sitting at the fucking skate park, and you'd be drinking a Coke, and you put it down for 30 seconds, and you look over, and this lady's taking it from you. That would happen all the fucking time. I remember because I did a little bit as a can collector, going around taking them out of people's recycling bins and like just trying to do all that and getting, like 4 or 5 big ass bags of cans and then bringing it to the spot and getting like $20 and just being like, what the fuck? That was not worth it.
Yeah.
Like doing the math in my head,
hard.
like that's got to be like $2 an hour or something for all the fucking hunting I just did for these cans.
I got to get to the real money. Yeah. This ain't it.
Yeah, I figured out that cans weren't it pretty quick. But so, do you have any ideas for like co-hosts, people that you could imagine yourself talking on the show with?
I'm gonna go through the list. I know I'm gonna reach out to my bro Warren G. Don Benjamin. We spoke. He's definitely gonna come on and come on the show with me. AD next show, doing with AD. We gonna get it in and just gonna really go through the list. Go through the list. And then also, I have artists, my son, Lil Side, my bro, IMB Izzy, and, my nephew, Dre Hill, as well. It's like they're young, and putting them also, here and there as a co-host, I really would feel it would talk to the youth. It would talk to the young people that can relate to them. Right. They can relate to their age bracket. Because there's categories, like, of, people that need help. But one thing I do love about myself, that the young people, they adapt to me. They embrace me because they really understand and they can feel like what I'm saying is not a gimmick. It's not made up. Like, he really comes from this lifestyle. So that's what make them reach out to me. Man, I got kids 12, 13 years old that reach out to me and tell me how I inspire them and motivate them. I got people in other countries, third world countries that reach out to me and tell me how my life story make them want to continue living on. I had a record I put out in 2011 called Never Give Up. We're in 2022, and still to this day, that record is uplifting people and giving people motivation and inspiring them to want to do something with their life. Because guidance, we don't have guidance no more. The guidance is no more. Just like families, they used to go to the granny's houses on Sunday and all the family come together and did family things. But when granny was gone, then all of that went away. It stopped. So there's no more communication, amongst households like it used to be. And it's lacking that. Our young people are lacking guidance. It's like, who do I look up to? Who can I look up to? Who can I look at and say, okay, I know what this person right here is saying is real. And that's what I've been getting for many years. Even when I was in the streets, heavy gangbanging, I've never influenced none of my young people to do nothing violent. Really? But I've always been an influence on get your money.
I thought that was like the whole thing.
In the wrong minds, yeah. I've always told them, just because you see me doing this, do something different. Like even with nephew, with AD coming up in the neighborhood, do something different. Like you in the streets, you got 2 options.
He's too big a target.
You're going to jail.
He's like, you can't have people shooting at AD. He's too big.
Well, he was thin then. He got bigger later.
Okay.
He got bigger later. In the streets, man, you either going to jail or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
You got 2 options. And if you made it through the 80s and the 90s and you still here, it's a blessing. It's a blessing it's a blessing to be sitting here talking to you. Like, really on some life-changing things. That's what it's about. It's about, like I say, saving lives is changing lives. And that's what it's about. Change your life every day. Work on your life to make your life better. And the more you practice that, it'd be continuously something that you do. And that's what I did, and I stuck with it. Because when I left the streets, a lot of people was mad, like, oh, he feel like he better. Like, no, I don't feel like I'm better. I want something different. This is, I don't want to be 80 with a blue rag,
Right.
I want to do something different. I want to show people how to build something, how to grow as a person, and be an example that you can come from nothing and become something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned AD. Do you feel like AD just kind of hides the shit that he's going through? Because he has kind of said a few things that made me realize that, like, he's gone through serious bouts of, I don't know if he would call it depression, but he's going through shit mentally. and he doesn't tell us during it, and then he'll like mention it like once it's done.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fascinating to me because I feel like for most stuff, I'm pretty much going to just let my friends know what I'm going through. It's apparently not his style so much, at least about certain things.
Well, sometimes, at some points, because we talk all the time, me and nephew AD. And
Right.
At some point, you will leave something bottled up until you feel like, you know what, okay, I'm ready to talk about it now. It'll just build and build and build until something clicks in your own mind and you be like, you know what? Let me talk to somebody. Let me let some of this out, some of this pressure out, because too much pressure will bust a pipe. So let me let some of it out and express it. So he know it may not be a time like it could be a group of people and it's like, I really want to talk to Adam about what's on my mind, but I can't because I don't want to discuss this amongst everybody. I want to talk to one-on-one, so a person to just hold it in until they get that moment to where they can actually, like you said, you've heard him say some things. So he feel like, okay, let's talk about it.
See, that's one thing with so much communication happening in the group chats.
Yes.
In our lives in general. Because it's like when I look at my BMX friend group, I got a couple different group chats, and that's like really how I'm communicating with them. When I look at the No Jumper crew, for the most part, we're talking in that sort of environment. So then, and it's very convenient because it's like if I see a funny tweet, I could share it with 10, 15 people in a group chat all at the same time, but it's also makes it a lot less likely that you're going to have the sort of like deep personal connection of like really talking about some personal shit with somebody because you're communicating so often in front of an audience.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
You know?
That makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah. And it's like, it's also just a lot of times you don't want to burden people with shit. Like over the years, in the beginning, I would kind of tell my girl everything that was going on drama-wise at No Jump or whatever. And then as time went by, it kind of became more and more like, do I really want to fucking bother her or worry her with all this different random drama that's popping off between the hosts or with other rappers or whatever, especially when I'm going to have to explain who like every participant.
You got to break it down.
Yeah, I'm going to have to explain to her who the Sereños are. And it's just like, dude, is this really something that I should even bother her with of explaining stuff that's going on, whatever? So it's like, a lot of times I just kind of.
Well, if that's your better half, then you're not being a burden.
Yeah, leave it at work. It's not, like if you're a cop, I think I've heard cops say this in like documentaries or something over the years, is that you got to leave your shit at work, because if you're out fucking investigating a murder and cleaning up corpses and all this terrible shit all day, and then you come home and you're trying to have a normal life and you're sitting around with your wife, I mean, it's probably better for you to not just like mentally burden her with every terrible thing you saw throughout your day, right?
So what do you supposed to do then? At what point? You see a therapist?
That's a good question.
Like, because it's built up. You're a detective, homicide detective.
If you never talk about it,
yeah,
it's gonna build up for sure.
It's definitely gonna build up.
Yeah,
you're gonna be affected by it, and once you're affected, then it affects your household.
Yeah. That's really the question. It's like, can you, like, how much can you talk to your girl about that? Or, like, what should you let her in on? Because I'm assuming, you might want to give her, like, broad strokes. You're not going to be, texting her throughout the day, like, oh, we just found a piece of his bone in the garden. Like, all this, like, gory details and shit.
Yeah.
But then maybe, like, still let her in on the big picture stuff. It's probably how I would suggest it. Like, I remember one time coming home, this was very early when I first had the kid, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like fucking driving in the car and I'm listening / watching on my phone. I'm watching the versus battle between Gucci and Jeezy. And this was the crazy ass battle where Gucci said that he was smoking on the fucking dude who he killed at one point. It was Jeezy's man, the most disrespectful shit that people seen in rap music in a long time. And I'm driving in the car, smoking a fucking blunt, laughing my ass off at this crazy ass rap battle bullshit. And I walk in the house with my phone on full blast, fucking just laughing and oh my God, girl, maybe you got to see this. And I just like look up and I see my girl and she's like not sleeping enough because the baby, and she's just like really like hurting in terms of, and I'm just out here just being Mr. Boss Man, fun loving Adam22, having fun, high as shit. And I just realized, like, damn, like, I'm going to have to really, like,
Yeah.
before I come in this door, I'm going to have to breathe, take a moment, and just be reactive and receptive to whatever her mental state is at the time. Because I can't just be walking in just only being me. Like, I'm part of a union here in a different way, where with the baby, it just brings you together and makes it so that it's a union in a different way, where you know, when you don't have a baby, you can kind of just like ignore each other. If you're in one mood and she's in another mood, you know, at a certain point, you don't have to be around each other. You can just kind of do your own thing. As soon as the kid comes around, you can't do that.
You can't do that at all. So you changed that situation. You improved it.
I try to be a lot more mindful of it now.
Although
also it's like, that was kind of a specific situation because she was just so, the shit that happens to a woman after they have a baby is some real shit.
It is.
They get depressed.
They do.
They
feel like they don't look the same no more. The figure is not the same, and
it was bad.
Oh yeah,
definitely. And but I would say that like now, if I come home from work and the kid is up, the kid is running around the house yelling and hey, what the fuck is going on? You know, just having a grand old time. So it's like, I could come in on some like goofy ass funny vibes and my kid's gonna be like Dada, like you know, it's very different. Whereas in the beginning of the fucking of having a baby, it's pretty much just like a day in day out war to make them not be crying all the time.
Yes, emotional. Yeah, very emotional.
Or they're just like fucking. You're just like tending to somebody. It's almost like being a baby at that. Being an infant is like a sickness in and of itself, where you have to like be protecting and maintaining them at all times, or otherwise there's something bad might happen.
Yes, at all times. Definitely.
So okay, next episode with AD.
Next episodes with AD. Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
People should tune in.
Talk about it. Oh yeah.
Watch where this journey takes you. Watch OG Cuicide develop as a broadcaster. See who he brings in.
Yes.
The link is in the description to his channel that these episodes will be appearing on in the future.
In the future, definitely.
Happy to have you, man. Excited to see where this goes.
Looking forward to it. I'm honored, highly appreciate it, and very grateful.
And we will figure out how we can take calls from the viewers at some point so that we can see where that goes.
So that's going to be very important, and I know for sure because I get calls every single day from people, like all through the day, you know, messages or phone calls. And if they message me, I tell them to call me.
Nice.
You know, sometimes they be shocked, like, man, like one guy, he called me, he messaged me, and I was like, here's my number, and told him to call me. And he was like, he had messaged me like, man, this ain't OG Cuicide, man. Why you playing, man? Why you out here playing, man? I'm going through something, and you think it's a game, and, you know, I'm really depressed and stressed out. I FaceTimed him.
Right.
And when he answered the FaceTime, he dropped the phone. Was like, oh, shit, no, hell no. It's really him. Like, you really be picking up calls and taking calls. I'm like, yeah, this is my calling. This is what I do. This is what I do.
Real shit.
Real life. Real shit.
People, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. OG Cuicide in the building. It's officially here.
Let's go.
Let's go.